Okay, I had a question from one of my viewers about getting the Blackmagic stabilized on the Moza Air 2. If you stripped everything off and put the Blackmagic on there by itself with a minimal lens, would it be able to balance without having to put on extra weights to make sure that it was stabilized? We're going to find out. I haven't had this cage off of this thing since the time that I got the cage. I put it on and it hasn't come off yet, so I am always hesitant about removing its protection, but I'm going to do it because you asked for it and you want to see. So we're going to take this apart, strip it down to the bare bones camera and just the minimal lens, which is a 20mm Panasonic. It's a very small lens. The actual lens itself is like that, and you get to watch the teardown process. So I may provide commentary or not. All right, so we will take a look at this. So I am removing the base plate for the Moza that comes with the Moza Air 2. And of course Moza Air Cross and things like that. The other ones will also have their own base plate. So this has a nice little case. The SmallRig has its own magnetic holder for the Allen wrench, which I put on there mightily. We will, there we go. All right. Take that off. There we go. I might have one more under here. And the reason that I put this on there was because I was confident I wasn't going to take this off ever again. So I actually have an Allen wrench slot in here that I must remove as well. Of course. Not having done this since I put it on, these are the steps. You know, when you get to all these word problems in school and you figure out, oh, well, you got to do point A, you got to do problem A first before you can do problem B, and then problem C and so forth. And it's like, you know, where are you going to actually ever use these? And it's, you know, it actually comes into play in real life. So you can't remove this without removing this one. And then you can't remove that without pulling this one out. And you can't pull those out until you close these. And then you pull the cage off. All right, now I have a naked camera. Wow, that is weird. I have not had this unprotected in a very long time. Okay, so we're gonna put it back onto, I hate setting it down even. You know, I'm gonna put it on some piece of, I will put it on this. There, and turn it over, set this plate on there. And I can already sense that without this plate, without the cheese plate centering it differently, we're going to have problems with the balance. That is my assumption at this point. Slap that on there. Yeah, so it's already a problem, so I'm not going to be able to get that in there. You can see it just doesn't have enough movement to the side for that. And again, it's only because where they centered this in the camera, I mean, obviously they put the bolt centered to the lens. And that's why you would get a cheese plate. You would get some other little plate that just you can screw onto there, and then you'll be able to use the other screw holes to center this properly. And this is the difficulty on the Moza Air 2, is that this little plate itself has two stop barriers, basically. So it moves in this channel, but only goes so far. And for smaller cameras, it's great. I mean, you know, there's no problem. Like the GH4, which we're filming with right now, would have no problem. It would easily balance. But this has to go way out to the end, and that's as far as it will go. And that is not far enough to put the Blackmagic on here comfortably. Now, I'm going to try and expand this plate a little bit more without, yeah, that's as far as that will go. So sometimes you can get this in here. Yeah, you can see where it's that far off. Now, I have seen people take it and mount it upside down. I find that a ridiculous proposition when you can just simply take a cheese plate or an inexpensive cage and put it on there and make it all happy. We're just too far off. It's maybe ½ an inch and everything would be just nice. So it's not that much. I can see that if they were to change this plate a little bit, allow it to come out farther, it would not be a problem and you'd be able to mount that without difficulty. And even just my holding it here, you could definitely see that you wouldn't need anything, because already I'd have to balance it that way. So if you put even just a small cheese plate, and they do have those, and by cheese plate, because some people may not be familiar with that, by cheese plate I mean just a plate that's only this big and that has this type of mounting on it. That allows you a lot more positions for moving the plate. And sometimes they're small, they look like that, but they're just that section only. That would add such a minimal amount of weight to it that I am confident, because even now just feeling it on here, it would balance without having to do anything. Because if this were to stay on here, you can already feel that, I mean, I have to slide this over just to make that balanced. So it would easily balance without any extra weights. But in my case, because I like to protect my investment, I use this entire cage, and the weight of this and its distribution and so forth makes it so I have to put that little extra weight on there. But I'll show you the minimal required for that too. I'm going to remove the other plate. And put this into here. Okay, put in the top mount, put that down, turn it over. Ah, it feels so much better now. Put in here. And then my gooey, sticky other mount up here. Back into play. Now that's proper protection. That feels good. I feel good that that's in the cage, and it's like, there's no sense in not having a cage on your investment. It adds a little bit of weight to it, but let me tell you, it feels so much better. I mean, it protects that. You can see where that comes up off the edge and so forth, the rim. And again, it's just all around, it's a very good fit. Allows for access to everything needed. So I am putting this in here. Just set that in there where it's nice and flush, and you get it to where it's about in line with the lens, and you tighten her down. Nice and tight, because it has to, you don't want this swing, you don't want this movement against the stabilizer so that it doesn't have to work harder. Then we make sure this part is loose enough so that it slides back and forth. We get that in there. So we get a feel for where it should be, where we put it in and where we can put it in and move it over far enough. And that allows us this movement back and forth so that it's nice and tight against this side. It just minimizes how much actual weight you have to add on there and so forth. The more it shoves over this way, the more weight you're going to have to put on there. So once that's in there and that's nice and snug up against there, then you can tighten this bottom plate. And again, this is another one of those things that you really do want tightened very tightly. That way you don't have any problem with the stabilizer shaking and vibrating. And then the nice thing about this is that this plate, I mean, it locks. You're in there. So if this isn't tight, you don't have this tremendous fear of, this thing, flying out and hitting the ground. But you do need to tighten it down and make sure that it is not causing any type of vibration. And that's just by turning that screw. And that makes sure that it's nice and tight on the plate and on the mounting bracket. And this L bracket, this here, that comes through here, is what you'll actually be adjusting as far as its up and down movement and forward and backward movement. Okay. So I have to get to where this isn't flying all over like that. So here's how I'm going to set that up. It has two really nice stereo microphones on here. The quality is actually rich. It's a pretty good, they're not bad at all. So assuming you're not going to put on another microphone, you just get the SmallRig little adapter plate here for mounting the weights. So this by itself has its own weight, and if we put this here on the arm like that, clamp it down nicely, you'll see that that's all that's required. That alone is all you will need for this setting, this bare bones setting. So I can balance that there. Bugs. We're set, and then movement side to side. Still too much there. Reduce this. Reduce this. Bring it back. There we go. And we're set. And that's all that's required. Power that up. Boom. Good to go. Again, that's just the extra little weight. You've got your cage on there to protect your investment already. This is a minimal bare bones setup. As you add other things, so if I turn this off for a second, and if it retains balance after you turn it off, you know you've got a nice balance. Once you add things like a microphone or a wireless lav mic, which I typically will do, is I will mount them all on this side. That way, sometimes you can get away without having that on there, depending on how much stuff you mount here. If you mount a larger shotgun mic on here, you don't need this weight, but you may need a counterweight underneath. And this plate, Moza was smart enough to add the holes in there so that you could put the extra weights on there, should you have something that overbalances on the top, which is really nice. The nice thing about the Rode Wireless Go is they are small. So you're looking for something like that. This is perfect. It works on there. It adds such minimal weight to it. And I typically, when working with these, let me get the actual receiver. Set that up here. What I will generally do is I will add another mic here for scratch audio. So I've got a splitter that basically puts that into play. Adds minimal weight to it. It really isn't a problem as far as being able to balance that, because I shoot with that frequently. I love this little plate, this little weight mounting adapter, because I can use it on the, like the GH4 she's using right now is the Moza Air Cross. I can use this on that arm should I need to mount the Blackmagic camera, which I do have a video, I'll put somewhere here, of my doing that. I actually put that on the Moza Air Cross. That one does require a little bit extra weight because of how the arm is, it's shorter. It all depends on the type of rig that you're trying to set up. Like I said, if you're using it just for the video, you don't need all this other stuff. Because there's some photography that I do, some of the wildlife photography and things like that. I use a separate audio source. I record audio on a separate recorder. This is only for capturing the visuals. So it is bare bones in that regard. Sometimes I'll have a long SmallRig lens on there, 200 millimeter, and I have to set this on the back on the plate a little differently, and I have to add a couple of different weights just because of that. If I'm using this, typically what I'll do is just mount this right onto a tripod where you don't have to worry about weights, you don't have to worry about anything else, and you can put those max lenses on there all you want. But overall, this is really a good device. It handles really well under a lot of hard conditions. We use it a lot, including the Moza Air Cross that you're looking this through right now, and the GH4, which is atop that. We'll use this lens so you can see what she's looking through. And we're going to drop that down to 400. Now this one's a 1.7 aperture, so it's really bright. There was a separate question or a statement somebody else had made regarding, because when I was talking about still photography with this, there is a dedicated button to press for that. And they said that you don't have to press hard, it takes the picture on the release. Absolutely not true on half of that. It may take the picture on the release of the button, however, you have to press like a demon just to get that thing to work. I can press very lightly and then press up. It does not take the picture. I press a little harder. Does not take the picture. I press a little harder than that. Does not take the, there it goes. But I had to go all the way down. I had to depress that thing all the way down in order for it to take the photo. So that's untrue. It may be different with their camera, maybe different versions, because I got one of the early versions of this, that button depresses with very little sensitivity, with greater sensitivity, and I don't have to worry about that. But as it is on this beast, you got to use your fingernail, press in all the way, there you go, in order for it to take a photo. Otherwise it just doesn't do that. So that was just a side note. I wanted to show my experience versus what they were claiming. And again, it may work on theirs. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that helped answer some questions for people who have concerns about buying the Moza Air Cross and what else you have to add on to that. I heartily recommend having a cage anyway. It helps protect the camera. You get all of these attachment holes that, including the different plates. You've got the NATO plate up here that you can slide in the handle and things like that. And you've already got a built-in cold shoe that you can just put your attachments to as well. It's just all around, it's a good idea. Protect your investment. And that's what I do. And any questions or comments, please put them below and I will address them as soon as I can. I'm running a couple of different channels and a few channels, but trying to get content for that, and so I'll get to your questions as soon as I can. They're valuable, and I hope in some way I can help you. And if you like this, please thumbs up, but more importantly, subscribe if you haven't, because that helps grow our channel. We're investing a lot more time to do that, so if you can just hit the subscribe, that will help us immensely. Thank you.